I'm going to start with, is there something to see here regarding Joe Biden? Because all of this is based on Trump talking to the Ukrainian prime minister about Joe Biden. And should he have been basically trying to get a foreign leader to investigate his political opponent, which he 100% should not have. And I assume the transcripts are going to show that's exactly what he did. So I want to first show you Joe Biden's response to this, and then I want to respond on if there's anything to see here regarding his son Hunter Biden being on an Ukrainian oil company's board, making $50,000 a month from a Ukrainian energy company with zero experience in energy, oil, nothing. He got paid $50,000 to sit on a board for a Ukrainian oil company while his father, as vice president, was President Obama's liaison for Ukraine. Nothing to see here. Let's see how Joe Biden responded right here.
Mr. Vice President, how many times have you ever spoken to your son about his overseas business dealings?
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
And so how do you know?
Let's talk about, here's what I know. I know Trump deserves to be investigated. He is violating every basic norm of a president. You should be asking him the question, why is he on the phone with a foreign leader, trying to intimidate a foreign leader, if that's what happened? That appears what happened. You should be looking at Trump. Trump's doing this because he knows I'll beat him like a drum. And he's using the abuse of power and every element of the presidency to try to do something to smear me. Everybody looked at this, and everybody's looked at it and said there's nothing there. Ask the right question.
Mr. Biden,
okay, but if you've never spoken to your son...
Could he be impeached for this?
Depending on what the House finds, he could be impeached, but I'm not making that judgment now. The House should investigate it. The House should investigate this. This appears to be an overwhelming abuse of power. To get on the phone with a foreign leader who is looking for help from the United States and ask about me and imply things, if that's what happened. That appears to be what happened. We know that's what Giuliani did. This is outrageous. You have never seen anything like this from any president.
Mr. President, you said before you entered the race that one of your concerns was about your family being brought into this race. Are you comfortable running a campaign in which...
I know what I'm up against. I know what I'm up against, a serial abuser. That's what this guy is. He abuses power everywhere he can. If he sees any threat to his staying in power, he'll do whatever he has to do. But this crosses the line.
Sir,
this crosses the line.
The president to do?
I'm calling the president to release the transcript of the call, let everybody hear what it is, let the House see it, and see what he did.
So what I was saying is, I'm going to get to Trump. Give me a minute, but I want to stick with Biden for a second. For those of you that don't know the story, Joe Biden, while he was vice president, was tasked by President Obama as basically the liaison or the person running roughshod over Ukraine. Okay? So Joe Biden, while he was running things over Ukraine, his son Hunter was put on a energy company's board making $50,000. Making $50,000 a month to do nothing. Okay? So Joe Biden's son, Hunter, has no expertise on energy, on natural gas, on none of it. He was just plopped on a board to do nothing on a Ukrainian energy company while his father was the vice president of the United States and was basically doing diplomacy with Ukraine. That is clearly inappropriate. That is clearly a conflict of interest, and it is clearly wrong. Not only that, but Hunter Biden in 2013 was on a board. Flew with Joe Biden on Air Force Two to China, and then a day later, his private equity firm suddenly got a $1 billion contract with China. They have no expertise on China. So I'm saying to you, there's nothing to see here that the vice president of the Joe Biden, the Hunter Biden, the company that he was sitting on the board, was being investigated by Ukraine. They were being investigated by Ukrainian, I guess their version of the Attorney General. The top prosecutor was investigating Hunter Biden's company. It's not Hunter Biden's company, but he was on the board of this company. And Joe Biden makes a call to get this prosecutor fired. The cover story is, oh, the prosecutor was corrupt and he wasn't doing his job, and that's why Joe Biden called to get this company, this prosecutor in Ukraine, removed. It wasn't to help his son. If you believe that, I have a golden bridge to sell you. That is absurd. And by the way, you know how I know it's absurd? You know how I know it's absurd? The United States is trying to get a Ukrainian prosecutor removed because he's corrupt? Since when does the United States government try and get officials removed in other countries because they're corrupt? The United States prefers corrupt officials in other countries. I give you the United States relationship with Saudi Arabia. I give you the United States relationship with just about every country around the world that has corrupt leaders. So you're telling me that Joe Biden made a call to get the prosecutor in Ukraine removed who was investigating the energy company Joe Biden's son sat on? You're telling me that in 2013, when Joe Biden and his son Hunter traveled to China, and a day later, Hunter's private equity firm gets apologies, Jen, check me on this, gets a $1 billion, I believe, contract with China? That's just because Hunter Biden speaks fluent Chinese and he's amazing and could lift China? Give me a fucking demonetized break. Okay? So there is something to see here regarding Joe Biden in Ukraine, but the corporate media, which Joe Biden was saying no credible outlet has found any truth to this. You mean the credible outlets like the Washington Post, who give Bernie Sanders 3 Pinocchios for saying that 500,000 families a year declare bankruptcy because of medical debt? You mean those credible outlets that go on the attack of people like Bernie Sanders, write 16 negative stories a day? These are the credible outlets that because they found nothing to see here, that means there's nothing to see here? You're telling me that NBC, MSNBC, and the Washington Post and the New York Times and all these outlets that ran with this absurd Russiagate nonsense for 3 years that has been debunked largely because they say there's nothing to see here with Joe Biden in Ukraine, that means there's nothing to see here? This is like the person who commits arson. This is like the person that commits arson, citing his accomplices saying he wasn't even in that city that night. So, the bottom line is, thank you, Jen, yes, it was $1 billion. Whether Joe Biden reaching out to get a prosecutor who is investigating the company his son is on the energy board, to say that Joe Biden and America were just trying to get this prosecutor gone because he's corrupt. Please. The United States prefers corrupt officials. Joe Biden, his son was enriched because his father was the sitting vice president, whose portfolio under the president was to handle Ukraine, which had tensions with Russia, obviously. So Hunter Biden made off like a bandit through this. And by the way, another reason why I know this is not, there's something to see here, is of all places, shockingly, Politico did a good piece a while ago, and it is a very long piece. It took me a long time to finish this. Politico did a long piece called Biden Inc., which is all about how Joe Biden's brother and Joe Biden's son have made money off of his name as a senator and then vice president. I'll just read you the first paragraph. The day the Bidens took over Paradigm Global Advisors was a memorable one. In the late summer of 2006, Biden's son Hunter and Joe's younger brother James purchased a firm. On their first day on the job, they showed up with Joe's other son, Beau, who obviously has passed away, and 2 large men, and ordered the hedge fund's chief of compliance to fire its presidents, according to a Paradigm executive who was present. After the firing, the 2 large men escorted the fund's presidents out of the firm's Midtown Manhattan office, and James Biden laid out his vision for the fund's future. Quote, "Don't worry about investors," he said, according to the executive, who spoke on the condition of anonymity, citing fear of retaliation. "We've got people all around the world who want to invest in Joe Biden." I'm not going to read this because this is literally like, I think it's like 15,000 words. I'll put the link in the super chat. This piece by Politico outlines the long history of the family around Joe Biden profiting off of Joe Biden. And by the way, to be fair, this is not unique to Joe Biden. You think Chelsea Clinton sits on boards because of her expertise? Please. You think Chelsea Clinton was on the board of IAC, the media company that owns the Daily Beast, because of her expertise in politics and media? No. It's all about access to your parent. No offense, Chelsea. So there is something to see here regarding Joe Biden, and the media is, of course, covering for him. Because the media ideally would like Joe Biden to be the nominee. But they're hedging their bets, and that's why this adoring coverage for Elizabeth Warren continues. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.
Status